Welcome to Do Your Dailies, the podcast designed to help you on your journey of addiction recovery. We're going to go through the big book of AA and use our collective experience, strength, and hope to help you understand what addiction recovery really looks like. So grab some snacks, sit back, press play, and dig deep. Thanks for being here. Well, welcome to this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and really excited to meet with my friends Joe and Dave today. Gentlemen, how is it so far?
We've been kind of out and about, and we're meeting again after a little reprieve, and I've been really looking forward to today to meet with both of you and to kind of get into the discussion, specifically the content about what we're going to jump into today, because I think it's just incredibly vital for those that know the message, but those who haven't had the message to hear what we're about to jump into today.
Well, as we all know, I'm the old guy, and this is important. So I've been out and about as well. I've been to Puerto Rico to visit my son and his family. Was home a day and flew to Oregon to visit my other son and his family. That's absolutely the promises coming true for a guy like me. I want to point that out, that they wanted me in their home, and I stayed for a week one place and 4 or 5 days the other and had a ball. And if you'd have told me some many years ago that was possible, I'd dismissed that quickly. So I am here with a grateful heart today. It's still pounding fast as I have taken on a very foolish endeavor, which is called a cold plunge. And I'm doing that. That damn Joe suggested it, and so he challenged me. And so, yeah, I'm doing it. And I stay in a lot longer than Joe now.
It's impressive.
That's not true, but, old guys get to lie. So there you have it, Chris.
I like it. Joe inspired me to try out this cold plunge thing as well, and I'm certainly not the savant or the expert like he is, but I've had a few of those dips, those plunges, and it's invigorating. It is a thing, and I'll tell you what. In the theme of this podcast, this recovery thing, a couple of buddies and I have tag teamed and kind of done this. I've got one guy who goes every day, sometimes multiple times a day, into the reservoir. And the last time I went, as we were coming out, we spent 15 minutes or so. And as we're coming out, here comes a couple of vehicles, and it was a treatment center, a local treatment center, and they were coming to do that. And really? It was just a very cool thing to connect. So we're not the only crazy ones, thinking that this is something special. But
well, I could tell you, nobody's where I go. I have to lower myself down with a rope into a rushing river. So I didn't tell you I was smart or intelligent, but that's what we do. And so, but I am on a rope, so I can pull myself out. Although my legs don't work all that great when they're a bit chilly.
Frozen, yeah.
It's all right. I'm here today. I survived to tell the tale.
Survived. That's the best way to put it.
They have a tendency to lock up and not work the way we want them to for a while, but very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the promises. And, before we start reading again in the big book, something that's come into my mind repeatedly over the last few weeks, just the idea that we're never done. The title of this podcast, Do Your Dailies, it's personal for me. There is a daily reprieve. There is a daily list of activities that we do to prepare ourselves, whether that's to go to the gym to jump into the river, whether that's to prepare for work or to have a relationship, conversation. We prep. We do prep work. We warm up. The NBA playoffs have just started, and I'm sure my team is going to lose real early, but I've been watching, I've been paying attention. So I want to use this analogy that before these guys, these professional athletes go out there and compete for 48 game time minutes in a regular game, they do a lot of prep work. They warm up. They do shoot around. They're stretching. They've got professional trainers who are helping them stretch to get warmed up, to get mobile enough and agile enough that they can go out and compete at the highest level. So it's the pro athletes. It's the person who's hopping in the shower, meditating, communicating with their higher power, having a meal, whatever it is, to prep for that next thing, that next activity. And so whatever your dailies are, my dailies might include, and you listeners, I hope you know what your dailies are. And if not, message us, because I want to have a conversation with you and help you develop those dailies. But those dailies include drinking a glass of water, rubbing my eyes a little bit. And what I mean by that, not just the physical movement of rubbing my eyes, but waking up, opening my eyes, noticing the intensity of the daylight, connecting spiritually. I connect with my higher power. Some days that's the traditional prayer. Some days that's a meditation kind of a thing. Some days that's a kind of a common, less, what's the right word? Orthodox conversation. Sometimes there's a little bit of vulgarity in that. Not too intense, but sometimes I'm frustrated. And I might be curious. Like, why, God? Why did this happen? Why is this going on in my world, or in the world by extension? You know? Some kind of physical movement, whether that be yoga, the gym, going for a walk, and putting something into our system, something into our body, right? Nutrition, we have to take care of ourselves that way. And so there are quite a few of those dailies, and that's important to me. And I want to just reiterate that just because I have X number of days, X number of weeks, months, years, or whatever it is of sobriety, recovery, that makes today no less important. We cannot mail it in. We cannot assume that today is going to go swimmingly and smoothly just because what we did before. Today is the most important. Right now, this moment is the most important time in our lives. And sometimes that sounds a little cliche when I say it, or I feel like it does, like the moment, be in the now. But it's true. Cliches are cliches for a reason. They make sense to us if we really take the time to understand what they mean. So, with that, let's dig into the book, if that's okay. We're at the top, not quite the top, but almost the top of page 25. And in italicized wording and lettering, it says, there is a solution. It says, almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. What does this mean?
Before we go on, I did want to address more of like the meaning in that, because that first part of that paragraph has so many, like deeper truths that we typically, we just read that and we don't really put value in what's being said. So I want to just kind of jump into that. So when it says, almost none of us like the self-searching, there's an aspect of the journey going into recovery where we have a responsibility to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly that is us. But our ego does not invite us to do that. In fact, we just want to move on and pretend like everything's fine. Okay? This is an invitation for us to take a good, hard look at looking at the things that we have created and what is in us that is part of that creation process, and look within ourselves and search what is there. The next level of that is like leveling our pride, okay? Because the pride is going to be saying, "Don't go there. Don't look in that closet. Keep it closed. Don't let the sunlight come in and like illuminate all the nooks and crannies that is there, because you might not like what you find. And I personally believe that pride really gets in the way of the journey that we need to have that miracle occur called recovery. We don't, our ego is, I think, too invested in the status quo of like keeping us sick, and it's not invested in allowing us the growth, the depth of like digging into kind of who we are and seeing that we're making progress. It wants to keep us kind of stuck. And then that next part is like so foundational, I believe, that there has to be a process where you're confessing the shortcomings that make us stuck or make us get stumbled in the journey, and don't allow us to have a smooth journey, but one where we're constantly filled with fear, shame, guilt. And those three aspects, I think, are groundbreaking in helping any newcomer that doesn't know what this journey looks like to understand these are a requirement. It's not, when it says there is a solution, that's the way I look at it, is like, these are the first characteristics that we have to face to actually start having shifts in our consciousness that will help us actually get out of the problem and get into the solution. So that first part, you know, although very clearly stated, when you read it, many people just read it to read it. They don't read it to study it. And he follows it up by saying this, which the process requires for its successful consummation. Okay, that right there is an invitation to say, we can be successful, but these characteristics are part of that solution, and we cannot do it without these in that journey, because without those, our journey is going to be the same thing that we've experienced again and again. So this paragraph, very early on, to any newcomer, let me just highly suggest you take the time to really be mindful, to study this, look into the definitions if you don't understand what self-searching, leveling of our pride, and the confession of shortcomings, what that really truly means. Because for somebody that's brand new into this, those terms, if you've never really looked into them, or you don't understand the vocabulary, can actually be a stumbling block to the process of like getting into the solution too.
I'd like to add a perspective that really helped me. The self-searching and looking at the truth, reducing the pride enough that I can then confess. I don't look at confession as a discussion necessarily with an ecclesiastical leader. Mm-hmm. I look at confession as truth-telling to myself to begin with. I've got to stop lying to myself. And so I look at it in the cleansing process of just acknowledging what are the lies that I'm telling myself. And I would even go so far as to sit down with a pad of paper. This is what I did. What am I telling myself that I know is not true?
Yeah.
And I wrote those down, and it was remarkable how fear-based I was and all of that. And so this confession, I believe, to begin with, is just truth-telling, first of all, to myself. And that became even more powerful when I could tell another person, not so much to be forgiven, but just to get it out. There's something magical about saying it, about putting it in words. It makes me more concise. It makes me think more. And so what's as I was trying to explain it, and then this person will tell me more, help me understand this. Well, that really helped me to understand more of the lies that I was telling myself, which then, once I was able to at least reduce those, then it reduced the lies I was telling others. But what I'm talking about here is confession, telling the truth to yourself, and that's why we don't like it.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. And it's okay that it's a difficult thing. My oldest for a time had a canvas hanging in her bedroom that said, I can do hard things. And to me, that's a mantra. That's one of my mantras. Because when I come across, and this might even happen every day or close to it, if I really contemplate it, I come across some challenge that I go, I don't want to do that. It's too hard. It's going to take some effort, and I don't know if I've got the bandwidth for it. I'd rather ... I'd rather go do this, And some of those things, it's not that difficult, right? And some of those tasks are really hard, and I can only kind of take a little bit at a time. I can't complete the whole task in one sitting, whatever it may be. But that concept of I can do hard things, it doesn't mean that I'm even prepared for it today. But today, can I just take one step forward, even one little inch forward in whatever that task is? As you were saying this a moment ago, I thought about an exercise that I make, that I invite clients to do in my office. And I get the most resistance with this particular exercise. I ask people, there's a mirror in the corner. I ask people to go over to the mirror. Sometimes. Most often I say, I'm going to invite you to do this at home. In your own privacy, in your bathroom mirror or something like this. And I invite them to look into their eyes, into their eyeballs. Not looking past the self, not zoning out and distracting, and kind of what are those magic eye posters that used to be there where you'd look so closely and go cross-eyed because you're almost like dissociating in a way. So don't dissociate, but connect. Look into your eyeballs. Don't notice your nose, your eyebrows, no physical features, nothing like that. But look into your eyes, connect with yourself. And prior to this, you'll have to set a timer for 2 minutes because it's very easy to get lost in the time. Sometimes it feels like it's been a day, and other times it feels like it's been 3 seconds when it's been the amount of time that I want you to target. I want you to set that timer for 2 minutes. Egg timer, set a timer on your phone, whatever it is. And out loud to yourself while you're looking in your eyeballs, I want you to say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, until that timer dings, until the 2 minutes are up. Quite often people can't get through those 2 minutes. That's okay. There's no judgment in this. There's no you're less than because you can't hit those 2 minutes. There are times where people will say, as I ask about this exercise, they'll say, I was saying it, but I didn't believe it. I was saying it, but I thought the whole time, no, I don't. No, I don't. There's that pushback. I believe firmly that this has to do so much with our shame, so much with the thought process of what we've done in the past, those actions, alcohol, drug use, hurting people, deceit, deception, manipulation, and all of that stuff. The things we're embarrassed by, the things we're not proud of. We're starting to confront that part of us, who we are, our humanness, but also that part of us that we're not thrilled with, that we don't want to continue. And so as difficult of an exercise as I know that is, because I've done it too. And anytime I ask somebody else to do it, sometimes there's some pushback and they'll go, well, do you do this? Sometimes. And I'll tell you what, if you do it, I'll start them up again too. I'll do a little refresher course. Because we never graduate from that. Again, we're never done. Just because I have X number of days or years or whatever it is, doesn't mean I'm there. But I'm taking another step. I'm inching forward, right? We have these goals in mind. Earlier we were talking about what we want. What did you say? Start with the end in mind. Well, what is the end? Well, I want recovery. Or how about this? I want to be happy. Listener, what does happy look like to you? Maybe take maybe take a second and just really ponder, what is happy to you? What does happy look like? What does it feel like? Who's there? And press pause. Spend some time doing that exercise. What does happy look like? Sometimes that's scary. Sometimes that brings up a whole lot of pain, I think. But again, that concept of, I just want to do a little bit at a time. Just inch my way forward. And it's okay to say, ooh, I've got to take some accountability. I've got to look at myself. Do a little bit at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Okay? Be patient. But like you talked about, we have to look within. We got to get honest with ourselves. And it's a tall order sometimes. So
I have a thought. It just occurred to me while you were talking, Chris, and talking about this is hard. And in the moment, it may feel hard. And we've said that this is easy, or excuse me, it's simple but not easy. But I'd like to put this in perspective. And here I am coming back as the old guy again with grandkids. So if you were to ask me, with what I experienced, and I'm gonna tell you what I experienced up there in Oregon in particular. The night was done, and I went in and I tucked my grandsons in bed and told them a story. I had him, and my youngest, he's 9, and he said, "Grandpa, let me see your muscle." I says, "You've never seen the likes of my muscle." I said, you better get out of bed and go stand over there. It's so big. I held those 2 boys and we talked, and I told them how much I loved them. I told them how much I enjoyed watching them play baseball and football and going to the ranch with them. And they said, "We sure love it when you come, Grandpa." I couldn't say much after that. I just hugged them and said, "Time for bed, and I love you guys." And then I walked down the hall a little bit, and there's my precious little granddaughter. I only have one granddaughter, and she's 7. And I snuggled her and told her how much I loved her and how much I enjoyed being with her. And the reason I tell you that is to tell you this. If you were to compare what I thought was difficult in what Joe has just talked about here, and what we think is hard, compare that difficulty with what I just experienced with my grandkids, that price is so small compared to the payoff of what I got. So Chris just said, what we want is recovery. Begin with the end in mind. I couldn't have foreseen that. In the height of my whatever I was doing, I couldn't have foreseen 2 bedrooms in Oregon where I was surrounded by my grandkids. That to me that's the 4th dimension that we're talking about. That's the payoff. Is it worth it? I just put it out there. Today it may seem difficult, and I don't want to diminish that. But what comes as a result so far exceeds the benefit, the blessing, the joy, the happiness that Chris is talking about. So overrides what I thought was difficult. I'd pay it 1,000,000 times over to get that. If I'd have known then what I was going to get, I'd have said, of course, sign me up. But I didn't know. I had to use some faith in seeing what other people had done and seeing how their lives had turned out. And I said, God, maybe I can have just a slice of that, maybe just a little bit. And so yes, it is absolutely worth it. And I've said it in here before, but that juice that I experienced in Oregon, every ounce of it was worth every bit of the squeeze that I put in to get there. So
just the reward. I think it's a common phrase that we've heard, something to the effect of, I didn't say it wouldn't be I didn't say it was going to be easy. I only said it would be worth it.
yeah.
And man, I'll tell you this too. I've had some friends come back into my life recently, some colleagues and people that I've connected with in the past who work in this field, who do similar things, and that concept has come up as we are navigating through our pain, as we're navigating through the hard things, and we, in that moment, and I referenced this before, sometimes when I go like, why would you let this happen? Why? It's not fair, and I can't reconcile those things. But in my own world, when I start to turn into I focus on my gratitude. I focus on the things that I'm really happy about, the things I'm grateful for. Often I'll question, like, would I have learned this lesson had I not gone through those hard times? Had I not experienced that difficulty? And a lot of the time, I couldn't give you a number percentage-wise, but a lot of the time I think, had I not been pushed, had I not been backed into a corner, metaphorically speaking, had I not been kind of kicked in the butt, right, and pushed in that direction, I don't know that I'd have learned those things. I don't know that I'd appreciate things the way that I do. I'd take a lot of stuff for granted. And so again, it's not that I'm not asking the universe, I'm not daring it to trouble me, to bring me pain and difficulty and those kinds of things. But there is almost an adrenaline rush now, depending on the circumstances, depending on the challenge. But that little adrenaline rush of, yeah, this is going to be hard. This is going to be tough. But we can do this. We got this. It's not because we're invincible. It's because we know we've got some weaponry. We're prepared. We've got resources. And as long as we practice those principles, yeah, I believe we can conquer anything. But oftentimes we get overwhelmed and we get distracted. So, anyway, I love it. Well, that next paragraph, it says this: the great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. I'm going to start that again. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Now, there's an asterisk there. Do we need to note that before we move forward?
Yes, we do.
That we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. And maybe it's something that we invite the listener to do a little personal study on their own. But any thoughts before we move forward on this particular section?
Well, what's really important about this section is this is the first time that we are referenced through that asterisk to look at, because at the bottom of the page it says fully explained appendix 2. So the invitation is like, we should probably stop and we should probably really look at what it means to us that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, because I think they would not have added that to this page unless there was something of deeper meaning that everyone needs to have because of the importance of that asterisk, because you don't find that throughout the book. In fact, we'll get into this, but the reality of what's fully explained is about to shed some light on the additional aspects of what we need to have collectively in our character to really get into this solution that we've talked about.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say he's introduced some pretty powerful concepts. In the paragraph before, we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension. Well, what does that mean? That means they have been just moved dramatically. The great fact is just this and nothing less. I think those are very profound, strong words that he's saying. Here's a fact. This is not opinion. This is our experience and nothing less. And so he's not apologizing for about what he's about to say and what he's about to the solution. Notice, when Chris started reading, it was in italics. Like he said, there is a solution. And down here, he's putting meat and understanding to that solution. A fourth dimension, heaven, a great fact. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. Now, what on earth does that mean? That's a fairly generalized statement, because my deep and effective spiritual experience could be very different than yours and yours. And so we have to understand what he means by that, because these are life-saving principles. And he goes on to say, which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life. That's not just a small change of opinion. If you think about a revolution, what's the most important one on this country? I mean, we separated from the motherland. We were a bunch of terrorists, We revolutionized our being and our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. Well, he said God's universe. Well, wait a minute. What? Whose universe, and what does that really mean? So he's dropping some big ones here. And he said, right after that, a deep and effective spiritual experience, that asterisk, if we don't understand what's written back in that Appendix 2, I don't think any of the rest of this happens. That's how strongly I feel. That was my experience. I didn't follow that. I didn't look at that asterisk. I didn't go back there. That was later introduced to me, and the principles that are in that appendix are so vital and crucial, and I just think that that's a critical piece. And I guess we have to decide whether next time that's where we go to talk about that or not. But I think it's absolutely vital. I would just invite you. Here's a challenge. I would invite you as the listener to go back to the Appendix 2. The spiritual experience. It's 2 pages long. Read the first page. It's on the right-hand side. Flip it over, and you'll see the second page. And write down what you take from both. Both messages are critical, but they're different. There's 2 very different messages that he's trying to portray to us and teach us and help us so that we have the right mindset to go forward. So I encourage you with every fiber of my being. This is critical to go back there and study that.
Between us ending today's episode and our next one, I'm gonna seek out some guidance. I'm gonna seek out some answers. I'm gonna prepare, and I'm really gonna dig into that. In my book, it's on page 567. Appendix 2. And I'm going to just notice what comes to me. And I'll echo your challenge to the viewer. Dig. Just notice. See what happens. I mentioned a couple of things that I've done in my office, and exercises that I've encouraged clients to do and people that I work with. As we dive into that spiritual piece and what that really looks like. What is God? Is there a God? How do I define that? What is my higher power? It's really often that I work with people that go, I'm not sure. I have no idea. And maybe even veering toward I don't think there's something there. Something else I've asked people to do is, and I didn't invent this, but a great mentor of mine years ago taught me this. He encourages people to ask 3 questions. Find a quiet place. And if you want to sit, if you want to kneel, if you want to go stand against a tree, whatever it is, but get to a quiet place where there's some peace and ask 3 questions to whatever being is or is not, may or may not be, whatever source or entity might be out there. And those 3 questions are, do you know who I am? Do you know where I am? And do I really matter to you? I've done that at certain times in my life where I was angry, where I was hurting, where I was struggling. And every single time I've gotten an answer. Usually it's not an answer I expected, but it's something that's brought comfort. And that comfort doesn't mean it's immediate gratification. It doesn't mean that immediately everything is solved, but I'm reminded that I have the capacity to solve. There are steps laid out for me. And so I encourage you, find a quiet place and ask those 3 questions. Do you know who I am? Do you know where I am? And do I really matter to you? I do not care if somebody has a religious faith preference similar to, related to mine, if they, wherever we are on that spectrum of believing in a power greater than myself, we need to connect. We need to recognize that as humanity, we're better together. We're stronger together. We're more capable together. And that's one of my hopes in us doing this work. Not that somebody adopts my way or our way, but they really connect within with themselves. And that end result, that happiness, that end goal is achievable for people. Any thoughts before we head toward a conclusion for today?
Really appreciate that, Chris. Being very straightforward and candid. That's how I roll as well, straight up. Someone asked me just a little bit ago, I'm actually sponsoring a guy, and I said this to him. It's along the lines of you asking about yourself. I looked at him and I said, how do you think I know what to tell you to do? And he said, I don't know. I said, it goes like this. In my way, I ask God, and my way is this simple. What do you want me to know? And then I call him by name. This fellow I'm helping. What do you want me to know about? And I have a pad of paper and I write it down. And he looked at me and he got tears in his eyes. And he said, you really do that? And I said, well, why wouldn't I do that? I said, your life's at stake. And you're trusting me to help you through this. And I said along with what Chris suggested you do, I suggested to him, I said, how about you try this? Why don't you ask God what he calls you? He said, do you think he knows me? I said, no, I don't think he does. I know he does. You're his construct. He built you. So why would he not have a name for you? He built into you gifts, talents, strengths. Ask him what he calls you. It was a very powerful spiritual moment. That's all I'll say about that today. We'll dig into this more when we get into that spiritual experience and that 4th dimension. This is the 4th dimension we're talking about. We're not banting words. We're calling it straight. This is straight ball. These are 200-mile-an-hour fastballs coming right at you. Why? Because it's life-saving. And I want to keep doing this. And I'll end on this. I've said it before. I'm 67. I'm in the 4th quarter. I don't know how many years I get to play ball. I don't really care. But I got to, like Chris said, I got to take advantage today. I got to squeeze as much out of this day. And I love doing this. And so I swear to you, I'm looking right into your eyes. You're going to get the absolute truth from me because I love you. And there's nothing you can do about that. I ask, before I come here, I ask, what do you want me to know about the people that are listening? Now, I can't know everything about everybody. but I shoot straight, and these two men do as well. What a privilege and honor it is for me to sit here and to do this. Only thing I ask is this: give it a shot, give it a try. Do what we're asking you to do. Ponder, think, study. Study this stuff like a spy, like your very life depended on it, because it does. Study it like a spy. God bless you. Old guy out.
So for those that are going to jump into the spiritual appendix, what I would also invite you guys to do is take notes. There's so much in those 2 pages that if you're not taking notes, you do have the potential of losing some insights that are very critical and important personally to that experience that we're going to be talking about.
Okay. I'm excited. And obviously we have a little bit of a delay in as we record, and then when we edit and air these. Shout out to our producer. But I'm very excited for what we come up with together. And yeah, even if it's a month later or however long later that we publish this episode, you listeners, will you hit comment? Send us a direct message. What came up for you? What are you noticing? And man, even if there's frustration and questions and concerns and that kind of a thing, we want to know about that. Give us an opportunity to dissect and digest those. You're not alone in this. We want to walk this road with you. You're loved and you're not alone. Please remember that. There are times where we feel like nobody gets it. There are times where we feel like we don't have anybody, that we can't open up. And I just can't reiterate enough how false that thought process is. You're not alone. We've got your back. We want to see you succeed. We want to see you happy. Thanks for spending some time with us. Share this message. If something resonated with you, share this with those people that you know. You're thinking of them right now. Those people in your world that you've connected with that could use a little love, a little support. Let them know you're thinking of them. And have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Do Your Dailies Big Book podcast. If you like what you hear and you want more, please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends, with your clients, with your sponsees. That's the best way to support us bringing you more recovery content. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Do Your Dailies. This podcast is sponsored by Hobble Creek Health and is edited and produced by Nielsen Digital.